Wes Spencer is an award-winning and nationally recognized technology innovator. He created an excellent technology platform for security, event, and incident management. So you might mention that, but he goes above and beyond that. Wes has been engaged in many different organizations from an advisory capacity. I think he currently is on an advisory committee for the Department of Homeland Security. He's worked for Fortune 500 companies as well as working for many public or venture capitalist funded organizations. So it's great to have him. He, as a professional, is working today as the CISO for ConnectWise, so external CISO for ConnectWise. And if you guys don't know, ConnectWise is a technology management platform that about 30,000 MSPs and IT service providers use. So he's just got an excellent purview and a really broad view into what's going on in the market, how service providers are helping customers, and we're happy to have Wes here. So thank you, Wes.
Thank you much. I feel like I'm kind of in church with this podium right here. I don't normally use those things, but it's really good to be with you. My name is Wes Spencer, and maybe just a bit more about me. So I come from a banking background before I started a company called Perch. And before that, I was a professor of information security and had some very technical roles in the past. And I've been one of those people that I'm definitely a nerd at heart and always have been. And I love the opportunity to sort of take technical stuff that's challenging, that's confusing, that's aggravating, especially for senior management, for C-level, for board, and really just trying to get to a point where we can understand what's going on in the world around us so we can make educated, informed decisions and how to protect our company. Because the reality is, cybersecurity is an extension of risk. And I think when we talk about risk, every person in this building, you understand risk. Whether it's physical risk, whether it's some kind of financial risk, cyber has that same element. And I think one big thing for us is we start to kind of come to grips with how do we deal with this in our organization. When we think about it in the lens of risk, it really helps us make the right decisions. And so I want to start with maybe this question, just for you guys. I want you to put your hand up and give me how important from 1 to 5, so it should be pretty easy for you. I just stick one hand up, just high enough to see. How important is cybersecurity for your organization? 5 being one of the most important priorities for your company, 1 being really not that big of a deal. Give me a hand. So I want to see. So a bunch of 5s. Anyone not a 5? It's super okay. I'm not pressuring you into being a 5. Any 4s, 3? Okay. So most of us are 4s and 5s. That doesn't surprise me. Now let's do this. Reverse yourself 5 years. So take this 5 years ago, and I were asking that question. 1 to 5, what would it be? 3s, still some 5s, 3s, 5s, 3s, 3s, 2s. Was that a 0 or that's a 0? Okay, fair. So here's a thought exercise for you. And I do this all the time, and I see exactly what we just saw today. It's super important today, but 5 years ago, nowhere near that same level for most of us. I always pick the regulated companies out, right? That said 5 years ago. So my big question, thought exercise, what has your organization done in the past 5 years to account for that growth and importance for your organization? If we're still doing the same things, if we're still budgeting the same way, if we're still thinking the same way, we have a gap, for sure. And that's something to think about is, what is that gap? What should we be doing about that gap? And how do we go about addressing it? And I think that's really one of the challenges we have in security, because we're like, okay, there's this, I know that breaches happen. I think we've all gotten to this point where it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I think we've all come to realize that, big orgs, small orgs. And I think one of the challenges we have is we recognize that up here in our head, but what we're doing about it is a struggle. What should we be doing about it? There's a sea of vendors that's out there. There's, how do I understand my cyber insurance requirements? How do I actually know the things that I'm doing are producing value and it's worth the investment that I'm putting into it? And all of those things are valid questions. You should be asking those questions. You should be able to know, what is the value when I put this spend into these things that I'm doing? If I'm raising the importance is there and I'm raising what I'm doing to compensate for that, what do I get out of that? Those are valid questions. And And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, is how we can sort of go through and build some of